Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, curious conversations about the Black and queer experience. I'm one of your hosts, Tony, and today, Jordan, Damon, and I are discussing the societal attack on the LGBTQIA+ community. Does the commercialization of Pride hinder or enhance the advancement of LGBTQ+ rights? What are our thoughts on the increased levels of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation? This is Pride and Prejudice. I slayed.
Honestly, every time I listen to your voice on the intro, not every time, but sometimes you give quiet storm.
Sometimes it
and
gives
I like
quiet
when you
storm.
do that.
Yeah, I do.
I
too.
do. I enjoy it. I get lost.
You know, when you take your time and do it right,
Yeah.
we can do it, baby.
You got that voice. You
We
could do
it.
You could do an audio
I'm
only
hoping
podcast.
that my voice transitions to like my dad has that really that register. And I
I
think
thought that was
as
you, Tony.
I get
I don't
older,
think the voice gets deeper after a certain
The voice, I
age.
think the voice gets deeper as you get older.
Really?
Beyond
Well,
like
I'm
singers.
excited about that.
Not
Maybe I
really?
can,
Not for you.
Maybe I can be a maybe I can be a
Maybe I
bass.
can be a bass.
Maybe.
Well,
Don't do that. Maybe I can be a bass.
well, listen to this.
Second.
I want to welcome our listeners as well as you girls to the Wind series of the Earth, Wind, and Fire themed season that we're doing here. You know, I got to remind the girls this is intentional. This is what we're doing
This
here.
is the wind.
And so with the Wind series, we get a little bit unpredictable, a bit uncontainable as we continue to move towards the other side of fear. To freedom!
I know that's right. Gone with the wind, fabulous.
Gone with the wind, fabulous. Now twirl on that. So I love what we've done with this season. It's been so much fun, and we had Earth really brought us down to our roots, and now we're gonna get a little bit like
A little loose.
with it. And you got the perfect color on, Damon, to celebrate this auspicious occasion. And I would like to start with a game, as we always do. And I'm going to call this game Pride Perspectives and Surface Level Confessions.
Oh.
Now,
A confession.
this is going to have you fucked up. So I'm going to need you to not overthink it, but I want very quick answers. These are going to be open-ended sentences, statements, prompts that I need you to finish, but succinctly if you can. And I know the girls are capable and able. So, first one, when I think about the impact of the LGBTQ plus visibility and representation, I believe
We need more.
we need more. Damon, when you think about the impact of the LGBTQ plus visibility and representation, you believe.
We're fucking fabulous. Why'd you ever want to hide us?
And I believe when I think about the impact of the queer community and our visibility and representation is that if the story's not yet written, then you must write it. And that's not original, but go do your research. Look that up. Second, all right, we're going to go in and out of like spicy and nice. We're going to do a little confession and a little perspective. This one is more confession. If I were to describe my queerest fantasy, it would involve... What would your queerest fantasy involve?
6-inch heels.
I'm going to go with 6 men.
6 men? Maybe. I would like to be down in the gutter too tomorrow. Like, just go ahead and just
She probably in the gutter in the
use me, Lord.
Don't let a few fool
Well,
you.
you know she works for the money.
Yeah, you walk in with your 6-inch heels and you keep those on, but everything else is
She just come out with trench coat. Phew.
yeah. I kind of like the idea of like just the whole, but expensive. Very very top of the line, top tier pussy. Okay, back. One important aspect of allyship to me is...
Not running away when shit gets tough.
Ooh, that's a good one. One important aspect of allyship to you is, Jordan,
Shutting up and listening.
period. One important aspect of allyship to me, and we've discussed this previously, is being more than an ally and being an accomplice. Okay? That's important.
Because you in it too.
Because you in it too.
Because you in it too.
All right. The kinkiest event I've attended during Pride season involved... The kinkiest event I've attended during Pride season involved...
Berlin.
Berlin.
Isn't that the answer for everybody?
I was gonna say sex on a dance floor.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, but it was happening.
What was I going to say?
No,
I was going.
Not you.
I'm shy.
Oh, please. You was just on here with your mama talking about getting choked.
Consensually and privately.
I'm sure those people were
Yeah,
dancing.
the
consensually.
kinkiest event I've attended during Pride involved the bathhouse. Yeah, and that was and it was on accident. It was on accident. Damon remembers, but it was a beautiful time. It was my first foyer. I said we're gonna keep it cute and light and quick. So
Tony, I think we're at the bathhouse. Are we?
I said, why are they asking for my things and giving me flip flops and a towel? Okay, and here we are. If I had to describe the feeling of attending my first Pride event, it would be. If I had to describe the feeling of attending my first Pride event, it would be
Overwhelming. There's a lot of fucking people down there. All the streets are closed off. Everybody's running around in rainbow garments. It was sensory overload.
Sensory overload.
Yeah,
Jordan?
I would say the same thing. Crowded.
Yeah. For me, if I had to describe the feeling of attending my first Pride event, I would say Pandora's box. There's so much there to unpack and explore, and it's just given like whatever you want, they got it.
Or packed.
Or packed.
Or you were a box on the side.
Ooh.
Hello?
A box on the side, living life on the edge. All right. Edge of glory, that is. When faced with challenges and setbacks, I find strength in...
Realizing this shit don't really fucking matter. Like, in my life, I'm not a doctor. At my work, if something goes wrong, nobody dies.
That's
I'm
true.
Just like, if I'm faced with challenges in my relationships, I talk about it. If I'm faced with challenges in my friendships, we talk about it.
Yes, ma'am.
So, like, it's not that fucking deep, and I can do it.
You're right. How about you, Jordan? When you're faced with challenges and setbacks, you find strength in?
Reading about solutions.
So you're going to go online and research or read a book?
How do I deal with this aspect of my life? 10 quick steps.
And that's on ChatGPT.
Period.
For me, when I'm faced with challenges and setbacks, I find strength in community. In my community, I really mean it could be community at large, but also just my community, my sacred circle. That community, you girls, and girls like yourselves. Yeah. And lastly, one thing I've learned about myself through exploring my sexuality is
I'm an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
And cash. Jordan, what's one thing that you've learned about yourself through exploring your sexuality?
That I can do it all and well.
Period.
That's
one thing that I've learned about my sexuality through myself through exploring my sexuality is that I'm a bad bitch. And I should lean into it. And the girls can't take this pussy.
Oh my goodness. Shout out to Kid Fury and that YouTube video from years ago that lives
on the blue wall?
free.
On the orange wall?
Yes. Back in those days, what was the context? They ain't gonna be able to take this pussy. And I was just like, that sent me. And I will never forget it.
Yeah, those were good time. Furious Thoughts. What was it? The name of it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So ahead of his time.
Revolutionary.
We need Kid Fury up in here, potentially.
We need to figure that out.
Right.
We need to figure that out because I would love that. All right. So let's get into this conversation today. Let's keep it light. We already kind of talked about like our experiences with different prides and everything like that. But I would love to just know from you all what your favorite Pride Week memory was. Damon, why don't we start with you?
So World Pride 2019, I was in the New York City Gay Men's Chorus. I got to sing a solo on stage at Carnegie Hall with like 500 other, like actually way more than that, like hundreds of other queer people who sang from like across the country were all performing at this thing. And in the opening song, I sang a solo. My friends didn't show up.
I was waiting on that moment.
In the audience, there was a gentleman who later joined the chorus, who I'll be marrying this year.
Wow! So, look my God.
The way it was interesting because for a very long time I felt I was really pissed off that nobody was there, and it's very interesting that
Lo and behold.
hey, he don't even remember. He don't remember. He was like, I think there was this light skinned boy. I kind of remember. I'm like, don't matter. It's a cute story. Just go with it.
He was there though.
Yeah, he was
so
there.
that is the what's the word I'm looking for?
Serendipity.
Yeah, that's it. I love a girl who's a wordsmith. Come on, Phaedra.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Tony, what about you?
For me, and I've had many prides. I'm not going to give my age away. But
She's 34.
one of the prides. See, that's when you gotta. I'm quick to check a bitch.
Did you write those lyrics?
I really reveled in the aftermath of 2020 when it was back to the basics, bare bones. It wasn't we couldn't have, I won't say a real pride, but it wasn't pride as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was, there was this particular day, and I forget who threw the function. It might have been Joe Morris. I'm not sure, but maybe one of the other promoters. It was a gathering in Central Park, Sheep's Meadow, and all the black girls showed up, and we just frolicked on the yard. It was so, it felt like community. It felt like love. It felt like support. It felt like everything that you think the community is when you're just like, I don't know what this community is because I don't feel it and I don't see it. And the one thing that I remember that was so beautiful is that it poured down raining. Mm-hmm. Now, the weather was nice. It was warm out, but a shower came over the park, and we all stayed out there and we played in the rain and we danced in the rain and we took pictures with each other. And I have those memories. So it's like forever in my mind as one of the things that I was like, this is really sweet. And this is what pride ought to be like. Even when we are back in like 2023, when like now, child, it's 100 events happening just tonight alone.
Plus club, another club.
I mean, y'all was having y'all real Drew Barrymore moment. You know that video of her walking out in the rain?
Oh my God.
And like really getting her life.
You talking about SZA?
Like, huh?
You talking about SZA?
No, Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
The Drew Barrymore.
The Drew Barrymore.
Did
Okay.
a selfie video out in the rain. Was like, yes.
Oh, I know what video you're talking about.
Really
Yes.
into it.
I was like,
some
why
people on
are
the
we talking
internet
about Drew
didn't like
Barrymore?
that. I was like, this looks like Jordan.
They thought it was an Herbal Essence commercial.
It was definitely giving Herbal Essence. Okay. I think for me, so my answer earlier was that I find Pride to be very crowded and overwhelming. I don't like big groups. I don't like music festivals and any of that. But I will say that Berlin for me was a game changer. I feel like we did everything that you're supposed to do at Pride. We had a little education, going out to see where Audre Lorde lived when she was in Brooklyn. Not Brooklyn. Berlin. We went to the Pride rally. We went to the damn club, like a couple of them. We hung out with some of our queer friends that are based in Europe. It was just it was lovely. And then we did what we love, which is like talk about our queer experiences, our queer Black experiences, and we created an episode out of it. So
I thought you was gonna say have lots of sex, but no, okay. Keep going.
Love it.
Was that like a
Well, you know,
it was malfunctioning in real time.
I'm just like, hold on.
She said, "This is my story."
Where is this? Where is this going now? But yeah, you know, a little bit of that. But yeah, so I mean, that for me was just kind of like chef's kiss.
Yeah,
I think that we did everything. Not everything, obviously, but we did a lot.
We left it all on the floor.
Well, you certainly did.
But my favorite moment was sleeping through Berkheim, and then Jordan being like, "You have to go," and like rallying. So I ain't gonna say what we did, but we got in. And a second night for Jordan, but the first night for me, and like. I was happy that, I don't know when I'll be back in Berlin. I feel like we will be going back, but I just will say, like, I'm glad that I got to have the experience that first time. And if you're interested in that experience, you can go back and listen to it because we did a whole episode from Berlin, and it was beautiful. Yeah,
exactly. All right, so let's kind of the episode is called Pride and Prejudice, and very intentionally because obviously they're there's just a lot going on with the concept of pride, the commodification of pride. And some argue that mainstream acceptance of pride has diluted the original radical roots. And I want to know from you all, does the commercialization of pride celebrations hinder or enhance the advancement of LGBTQIA plus rights and equality? Let's start with you, Tony.
Yeah, this one for me is on a seesaw because I think that when it comes to these corporations, a lot of it is performative. We know that they like to lean into these matters to show their solidarity, but also we know it's making them a buck at the end of the day. And if they don't, there's a whole audience of people who will decide to maybe not spend their money or consume the content or whatever the case may be. For how that company or whatever it is makes their money. And while at the same time as it's like you feel like they're doing the song and dance, they're putting their logo and rainbow, and it's just like it's very icky. The ick, as people say. When people say that, I'm like, ooh, it's nasty. Nasty. But it can feel that way, especially when you do the research and see that certain companies where their actual money is being spent. And sometimes you find out that they're supporting
right.
Queer rights and what have you. And then, but you don't do that research and you just think, oh, wow, this is lovely. And it's kind of like it masks what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, one of the things that I do know and will say is like it is, I think, important to have that visibility and to see these corporations support the community, but they have to be putting their money where their mouth is. And I also know, because I've been listening to other people have this conversation, is that there are a lot of queer folks who participate in Pride who this is their one time a year where they make probably their money for the whole year. Mm-hmm. Or just most of their livelihood comes from doing events in this season. And so I would hate for that to be taken away because, you know, I'm cognizant of that, which I really didn't think about before. And so that serves the good. Yeah. And I hope that companies can do more of do the performative thing, because sometimes performative is okay, but actually be doing the work behind the scenes to fund and support people in our community who really need the help.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Pride and Prejudice.
So I think we can do two things at the same time. I think there are people that will do the work of radical change and liberation. And I think that there are corporations that can get involved in a movement. But what I do believe is that said corporations can be much more radical. And when I say radical, it doesn't mean that, I don't know, Target is burning down something. Mm-hmm. But what I mean is if you are going, for instance, if you're going to produce a Pride collection, the sales from that likely should go to a community organization and not just your bottom line.
Yeah.
What I mean is that if you are going to have a Pride collection in your stores and someone comes into the store and complains, you don't take it down and say, oh, well, we were scared for the safety of the people in the store. What you should do is use the money that you have, because you have billions of dollars, to fund security for that. And like, it's really about putting the money and the support behind people, even when it's uncomfortable. What I mean is that if you are having a campaign and some idiot like Kid Rock complains and shoots up a bunch of Bud Lights and said that they don't want to do it, you stand by those people.
10 toes down.
You use your platform, your resources, etc., the safety you can provide, honestly, to those people. Because when you think about queer liberation and you think about who people are fighting for, you think about the work of queer people of over the last 50 years, think about the work of Black trans and brown trans women and people. That shit's not easy. It's not like queer liberation isn't just rainbows and confetti cannons.
Right.
So like for you to think that you can participate in it without getting at least a bit into the mud, then like you're really not in it.
Right.
And like if you're going to use, because you're using us,
yeah,
it gives you like cool points and yay, they're inclusive, so I can go buy a shirt there. Right. Like we're not stupid to think that like if that exchange wasn't happening, that you would not be a part of it. So if you're going to be a part of it, like be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I hate that. Like the minute that things get sticky, they want to roll shit to the back of the store. And I'm just like, whoa, wow.
That was quick.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That
Imagine
was
like
easy
if the
for you to
people
do.
That was an easy decision.
Right.
to make,
Imagine
right?
for the people doing the actual work of liberation, if they just got to Stonewall and the police came in and be like, oh, well, that was fun, y'all going on home. Like that is what is happening in some of these scenarios, and like that's not acceptable to me.
100%.
Yeah.
Jordan.
I mean, I think when it comes to these for-profit corporations, I honestly don't really expect much from them outside of trying to fulfill some sort of bottom line. And maybe that comes from, over a decade of working in corporate America. But I think that with anything, there's going to be good and bad. I think that it's really hard to find things that are just purely good. And I think that I want these companies to continue to step up and to amplify our community. And to your point, Tony, yes, some of these companies are doing it performatively. There is an obvious earned value from being inclusive and being accepting of all different types of people. And we understand that. But for me, it's kind of like, well, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? Like, is the alternative like, don't do it, Nike? Don't do it, Target? No.
Just do it.
Like, I think that...
Just do it.
She's a marketer.
You know
Ladies
what?
and gentlemen.
I wasn't ready. That's why they paying the girls the big bucks. but yeah, for me, it's just kind of like, yes, let's make sure that we hold these companies accountable, and let's make sure that they understand where they got us fucked up. But I don't think that we need to go.
But
I don't think that we need to backpedal and be like, well, don't do anything. What? No, we do need to be present.
Yeah.
We do need to have commercials. We do need to have shelf placement in these retail shops. And yeah, are people going to be stupid and go and, like destroy a whole bunch of merchandise after they bought it? Sure, that's bound to happen. But like, fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be haters, but like we need these organizations, these platforms, these brands that have these huge platforms to be able to talk to the world, quite frankly, to show us and feature us and give us that visibility.
Yeah.
So
I was getting ready to say that visibility is important because that's what gets the conversation going. Just period. When you have like that, like the reason
listening to Surface
right,
Level.
the reason why anyone is talking about these things is because big brands are getting involved and trying to show their support because we know and we're behind the scenes. I've been part of so many conversations where it's literally like the girls are running around the office because they're scared of the backlash and how that can affect the bottom line, because it does. And I think for the first time, I feel like I heard on The View where they talked about Bud Light, like they actually have seen profit loss because of what's going on.
yeah.
And also, it says a lot of like, oh, well, who are you serving in the first place?
Not us.
Hello. Speaking about the environment that's currently in place for queer people, so the Human Rights Campaign has declared a state of emergency for LGBTQ Americans. What are your thoughts on the increased level of anti-LGBTQ legislation, and why do we think there's a hyper focus on our community now, Jordan?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It's obvious that the queer community is seeing gradual increase in representation, visibility over the years, especially among like these organizations, brands, businesses that have these huge platforms. History has showed us that when marginalized groups receive a stronger sense of equality, even like a visual representation of equality, the people with privilege feel oppressed. And we saw this when Black people started generating their own wealth and creating their own economy with the Tulsa massacre. We saw this with after Barack Obama being elected as president, we got 45 because there was so much backlash. It's just like, oh my goodness, we're going in the wrong direction. And so I'm not surprised that with more visibility and with more support from, mainstream media, if you will, that there's going to be backlash from people who don't agree. And I think that we collectively as a community have been preparing for these moments. You know, these pride rallies and these pride parades, it's all about resilience. And I think that the fight will continue. I have more than enough faith that we will come out on top, and that we will continue to move forward and gain our, more and more equality year after year. And so, yeah, it's expected. If history has shown us anything, I'm not surprised that there's people who are upset that other humans are receiving, more equality. It's trash people. And I think that, we have to
trash human.
I mean, seriously, it's very disappointing to hear the headlines and to know that these elected officials are taking these steps and these measures to suppress and oppress the community. But I do think that there's so much momentum other places that I'm optimistic about the future.
Child, I really thought about this question because when I think about like why now, it's like it's almost as if the LGBTQ plus community just popped up yesterday. And now it's like rage against the machine. I don't understand it. It feels like it's, you know what it is? It's a distraction. And I think that politicians are using it to distract people from the real issues so that they can push forward their dark-sided issues. And you know what? I'm going to put my specs on for this because I'd like to give a shout out to our sisters, over there at By Latin Men, because one of the things that I heard that I hadn't heard before was this concept of moral panic. So let me tell you about moral panic. Moral panic is a mass movement based on the false or exaggerated perception that some cultural behavior or group of people is dangerously deviant and poses a threat to society's values and interests. Whose society? We know whose. Moral panics are generally fueled by media coverage of social issues. And that also goes hand in hand with fear-mongering, which is the action of deliberately arousing public fear or alarm about a particular issue. And so I think that speaks exactly what's going on here. They're causing moral panic from these folks that really think like, oh my goodness, this community is doing harm to me. Yeah, snatching up kids and X, Y, and Z. So they're pushing this crazy narrative, and people are gullible. People don't know any better. People believe what they see. And you know what? I'm glad that us as Black children have learned from our parents is don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you see.
Right.
You got to really do some research, get a second opinion, get a second thought. So it's taught us natural curiosity and to question and challenge things and be like, oh, this don't sound right. Like we all got a little bit of our mother's intuition somehow. And so that to me is like at the crux of like what's going on here. All a distraction is all to put up that smoke and mirrors to get us confused about what's actually happening. And lo and behold, they're pushing through hella legislation just because I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, a lot of them, it turns out like they have family members, kids, relatives, etc., that are part of our community.
They might be a part of the damn community.
They might be a part of the community as well. And it's nasty work. It's nasty work.
Yeah, I know. It really just boils down to political strategy. So if you think about the GOP, they typically don't have much of a message outside of, excuse me, outside of really great slogans, Make America Great Again, or making a boogeyman out of someone. In this moment, they make all about a great slogan and creating a distraction by making a boogeyman out of the LGBTQ community. Because the reality is the person at the top of their ticket who will likely get the nomination is a terribly flawed candidate who lost them the Senate, lost the House and the Senate, and lost them regaining the Senate again, and that really poor House majority. He's running again. Nobody's likely going to beat him unless there's something grossly different that happens, maybe with his indictments. So therefore, it's just like, okay, well, how do we get wins other places?
Yeah.
And the wins come at the state level, where there is mass control due to gerrymandering in states all throughout the South and so on. In some parts of the Midwest where there are legislation legislative bodies that are fully made up of one party. Additionally, they
Wait. Say that again.
So a lot of states are gerrymandered, meaning they drew really shitty maps that basically make it impossible for Democratic candidates to win.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, they'll draw really weird shaped maps to like put all the black people in one thing together. So like the million black people in all of the state are together. Then every other area in the state, every other map is like little white kids in the suburbs. So like when you do that, when you vote, there's like the one representative for that black area, then there are like 15 other representatives not from that area.
Right.
So therefore you get super majorities in a lot of these state houses that can push through whatever they want, that can even veto governors, which is the case in places like Kentucky, where there are enough black votes in places like Louisville to get someone at the top. But like because of how the state is split up in the House, you can't do that. Additionally, they won their war on abortion last year, overturned Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision, and that was a terrible political ploy for them. It's one of the main things that fucked them up in the midterms last year. So therefore, it's just like, okay, how do we now deflect from this? How do we now get the moms back on board with our party? And how do you do that? You say these queer people and these drag queens are going to come and take your kids and turn them into dick-sucking demons.
Ain't gonna win. I say suffer to them,
honestly,
it's not gonna win.
I feel like I just listened to TLC talk about how you could sell 60 million records and still not have any money. Because the story you just took us through, no, seriously, no, it's the math, right? It's the math.
And the math
it all comes down to power.
Knowing those rules, specifically, that's some complicated shit.
People will switch their politics if it means that it will get them closer to a win that will result in them being more powerful.
Yep.
And that is the issue, and that is the reason why politics really, really, really just kind of like frustrates me, because it attracts a certain type of person, narcissists.
Yep.
Megalomaniacs, is that a word?
Yep.
It attracts people who are seeking power.
Yeah.
And so
megalomaniacs.
I saw a video on YouTube about it.
Do we know what that means? What that actually?
It's like a more intense version of a narcissist.
Oh, wow.
And what's happening is that the humanitarians don't even have the passion to get involved because politics is so polluted. And so what you end up with is a bunch of very charismatic, narcissistic people who are going for a power grab and are willing to say whatever they need to say to get the math to work in their favor to be able to win and be able to have power, money, respect, access, and who loses?
In life.
Like a rap song.
What you need in life?
Money,
power, respect.
So I think pivoting back towards our community, like for this whole month is about us. We obviously are discussing the prejudice piece of it, but we want to move back to pride because we're not going to let negativity from other people fully cloud our moment and the joy that we want to express.
Yes, take me back.
Bring it
back. Bring it on back now. Bring it on back.
All right, so drag right now. They're after the drag queens, and they've with a lot of prejudice legislation. Okay. But let's end by doing something a little fun.
Okay.
So if you were a drag queen, what would your drag name and persona be? And in the tradition of the Drag Time Story Hour, give a synopsis of a story that you would read to the youth about the promise of tomorrow. Jordan.
Well, that's a big question. So I'm gonna dissect it, and I'm gonna do it one by one.
Oh,
so
the persona! I see it. It's coming alive right now.
I am Lady Whistlegown. Because if you were to ask me to sing, it's beautiful gowns. It's beautiful gowns. It's beautiful gowns. So I'm Lady Whistlegowns. And what was the next question? What's my persona?
Well, that's your persona, Lady Whistlegowns.
Okay.
That's your name.
Rich
and if I was to ask you to sing, it would be beautiful gowns.
Woman.
Rich black woman. Let me be a woman.
The girls want to misrace me all the time.
Woman.
You want to misrace me.
So rich white woman. Mixed race.
Do not laugh that hard, Tony.
I'm just, you know what? When something's funny, I gotta laugh. I just gotta laugh. No, what would
what's
be
your
the
story?
synopsis? What would be the synopsis of the book you would read to the children?
Okay, so the synopsis of the book that I will read is about a young queer person. They're non-binary.
Oh,
And it's set in the near future because I love near future moments.
oh,
And they are pursuing a career in helping to restore truth in history
oh.
because history has been so contaminated by rich people dictating what history was.
Yes.
And so that non-binary person is there to actually uncover the real truth and share the real truth because it's all been so tainted.
It's like Lies My Teacher Told Me. Did you ever read Lies My Teacher Told Me?
Lies
It's an
my
interesting
teacher told me.
history book. One of the things they talk about is like the first Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and then the Native Americans and the Pilgrims sat down together. Well, actually, they gave them like blankets full of smallpox and killed everybody. But like that part gets left out. So like it's an interesting book about these different types of pieces of history.
My God, today.
Tony.
Well, over here in the world of drag,
Yeah.
my name, and call me by my name, would be Miss Frida Vision. And so Frida Vision, there's a little bit of spice and delight, but with vision, I can see straight through you girls. I will read you into a box. I'll let you have it. I'm a hood bitch with classic tendencies. And I like nice things. And so when I read for story hour, I'm going to come in and sit down and sit the children down. Gather around. And so the synopsis for the book that I would read has to do with a world in which we're all born unique in this world, the children. And I would say to them that in this world that tries to cause so much division, you are the one kid that goes around with superpowers to help people see what they cannot see. We have a lot in common. We have a lot of differences, but you have that superpower that helps everybody to mind their business, mind the business that pays you. And we all live happily ever after. And so I'm spreading the vision and storytelling to the children. And so for them to go out and believe that they can be that possibility model too. It only takes one.
All you've got to do is dream.
Okay.
That's what the songwriter said.
That's all you got to do.
And I love a sci-fi fantasy.
Yes.
So let me know when the book is written.
Well, we have a friend.
We do.
By her name is Riley Wilson.
Yeah.
Sci-fi
girls.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go in and talk to
Your
her.
Afrofuturist book.
Afrofuturist. Ooh. I think I would have an afro on.
Oh, okay.
I think I would have an afro on at story time. Story hour. In the library. And listen, the library is open for reading. A little bit of shade in there.
Chill. All right. Y'all are ridiculous. So my name, I don't know if I'm appropriate for children as I wrote this, but I don't care. My name would be Harriet Homan.
Harriet Homan.
Harriet.
Homan.
Yeah, and my persona is really about being a free bitch, baby.
Ooh.
And like trying to take you girls to freedom.
To freedom.
To freedom.
To freedom.
And the story I would tell. So my story would go a bit like this. When I was in school, I talked to a teacher and I said, I can't wait to be an adult so that I can be around more mature people. She said to me, she said to me to tell you, sorry. Sorry. Let me start over.
Go ahead.
So my story would go like this. When I was in school, I said to a teacher, I can't wait to be an adult so I can be around more mature people. That teacher said to me, well, baby, this is as good as it gets. So my story, I would tell kids that be your fucking self, don't change, grow, but don't change. Because adults are fucking idiots. And at least you still have your innocence.
It's the profanity for me. I love.
And then they would rock me from talking to
And
the
this
kids.
is exactly why
I would be
Damon ain't have no
fucking
and this is why I have no
self.
fucking kids.
I'll be like, Damon.
And I imagine, what I imagine? A long cigarette. Be your fucking
He was like,
self.
they can listen to the profanity. I'm telling them to be themselves. It's a good message.
I'm like, these niggas is cussing. You trying to...
You know what would be fun? We need maybe sometime in the future of Surface Level maybe one of our drag friends would put us up in pumps. I would love to see what our personas would look like.
I'd be a beautiful woman.
I think it would be awesome. Oh, we would be dream girls. Boy, we make it happy.
Ciao. And that is all the time we have for this Pride episode of Surface Level. If you enjoyed this conversation, let's keep it going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.